about Charles Darwin and what he discovered in 1831, which I think I wrote 1851 on accident, but it's supposed to be 1831. So we're going to start by using Google Earth to kind of give us a tour around where Charles Darwin traveled in order to find the important discoveries that really shaped how biology looks and also what we teach primarily in biology. So let's start at the beginning. So this is something that I would have students do on their own so that they can go at their own pace. There are guided steps at each location for students to explore, but I'll kind of talk our way through it, and this would be something I could post on the classroom site for students who are absent who needed to do this on their own time. So over here in the sidebar, I can see in the beginning, and I'm going to double click on that to zoom on into Plymouth, which is not the birthplace of Charles Darwin, but this is where his journey began. And so if I click on it, we see pictures of Charles Darwin in his youth. It says that his voyage started when he was in his 20s, but this photo does not look like he's in his 20s, so I'm going to take that one with a grain of salt. But underneath we can read a little bit about Charles Darwin, who he was, a scientist, a naturalist. His job was to basically collect evidence of life in other places and to research it and study it to help understand what that life means. And so his journey, there it is, 1851, supposed to be 1831, started when he left Plymouth with people who were set out to survey the coasts around the world on a ship called the Beagle. And so we'll start our journey along with Darwin here. So after we leave England, we're going to go all the way, very long distance, to the Galapagos Islands. And we're going to start here, where it says a new shore. And I have a map here, a picture of Charles' journey from Plymouth. They went on a lot of different places, as you can see. A very long journey. This actually took 5 years, and I have a little bit of information about that. We are going straight to the Galapagos because that's the important part for his major discoveries in biology. So here I'll have students read a little bit, and then the guiding question is, why might animal species be uniquely different from one location compared to another? That was one of the major observations of Darwin. For example, Darwin found finches on every island in the Galapagos, but on each island the same species of finch looked uniquely different. So here I'll have students hypothesize in your notebook, write a hypothesis to explain why a population of the same species of animal might look entirely different from another population in a different location. So that's to kind of front load and get students thinking about why populations might differ from each other. So next we're going to go to the islands. We can zoom in to really see what this looks like. Kind of barren, a little bit surprising that for an island. The Galapagos Island is actually a series of volcanoes, so I suppose not that surprising. There's some biologist, perhaps a tourist. Okay, so here we zoom back out. I have a prompt for students to explore the islands. The Galapagos is a chain of many islands by looking at images and street views. So this would be a time for students to kind of do their own exploring. I'm going to have them choose 3 to write down, 2 observations for each of the 3 in their notebooks. And so the intention here is for students to understand that the islands are different. They're not the same. Some are bigger, some are smaller, and each one has a different capacity for life. So I have a couple of islands pinned, but students can look at the islands on their own, ones I haven't pinned. So for example, this one, Isla Fernandina, I call the volcano island. Students can look at photos here. I have a little bit of information about this island. That is essentially very barren because it's an active volcano, and so it's very rocky, there's not much plant life. So animal life they might see here would look quite different than other places, and it's kind of cool. There are photos that we can look at here. If I can do it, here we go. see how this is a very active volcano. So we'll go to another island. Students can explore that further, looking at more street views. Isla Santiago is another island. This one was first discovered by Columbus, actually. And this one's actually an island teeming with life. And so this one talks about how it's fairly large. There's marine iguanas, sea lions, seals, turtles, flamingos, crabs, dolphins, sharks, so many different animals. And so this island is quite different from the other one that we just found. Again, students can really zoom in and get a good look at the island. I'm a little afraid my computer's going to crash, so I'm going to not go too crazy on this one. I really like these 360 views that are uploaded by other users. It's really beautiful. Okay, just two more. So this island, Isla Santa Cruz. I called it the city island. This is the most populated island. Of course, at the time of Darwin, this wouldn't have been true, and so that might be a point for students to either think about themselves, or maybe they didn't think about that and might write about how, because it's so populated, the animal life and plant life would look very different. So that could potentially be a point for students to think critically about when did this occur in history, and how does that affect what we know about life as we know it. The last one is, I call it the Old Islands, one of the oldest known areas in the Galapagos, based off of rock dating. Isla Hispaniola. This one, several million years old, I think 4 million, I had found out. And so this one, again, is also very barren and rocky, with hardly no vegetation. It's very small. And so any animal life would be probably hard to find, but also have very small populations, which can lead to a lot of genetic drift, which students will find out about later. Okay, so then I have a checkpoint for students as they're exploring the different islands. They can explore more than just those 4 that I did. This checkpoint on the main island prompts students by reminding them that they should already have a hypothesis and then 2 observations for 3 islands. Then I give them this additional piece. And Darwin's studies on these islands came up with 3 major observations. Individuals in a species varied. They didn't all look the same. Some of the traits were better suited for their environment, and then the ones who had better suited traits could reproduce and pass on those traits. So here's a prompt for them. In their notebook, identify 1 trait that would be helpful and 1 trait that would not be helpful for bird species for survival on each one of your 3 islands. This is intended to be kind of an introduction to natural selection, not really giving students words or specific vocabulary to put to this. And so this would be very introductory to see what students already know and can deduce on their own. So the last point would be coming home. So after we made all those observations in the Galapagos, we're coming back to England to share them with all our people who are not jazzed about the things that we found. So he comes back to Falmouth. Oops, this might have been here. England, there we go. Okay, so Darwin returned home to Falmouth, England, and he eventually published his findings in a book he wrote, The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, in 1859. I have a link here that students can go to. I don't see it showing up, so I'll have to check on that. But this link is to a video about Darwin's travels and his proposed theory of natural selection. It gives students some vocab, like the term evolution and natural selection, as well as variation, along with another case study of the peppered moth. And so this is kind of a little bit more of that extension piece that students would explore on their own time as they reach it. And so this is the entire assignment for students to explore on their own, hopefully to give them a good background about the Galapagos and how a very foundational piece of biology was made not really all that long ago, and how it required a lot of effort on the part of the scientists in traveling far away from home to make these discoveries in a time when travel was not really all that easy. So that's it. Thanks for listening.